Committee meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Before we proceed, I'd like to recognize the members of the committee who are present with us today. To my left, we have Senator Dennis Mendiola. To my far right, Senator Carl King Neighbors. To my immediate right is the Vice Chair for Fiscal Affairs, Senator Karina Magofnia. I am Donald Manglonia, the Chair for Fiscal Affairs. And with 4 members present, we have the necessary quorum to proceed with today's agenda. And so before we move forward, can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? All right, there was a motion made and seconded, and then just for information purposes, item J, it's just technical. It's supposed to read Senate Resolution 2310. All right, if there's no concerns with that, members, all in favor of adopting today's agenda, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The agenda is hereby adopted. We now move on to item 3, public comments. The floor is now open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and state your name and any the entity you may be representing today. As I stated off the record, we will keep comments to 5 minutes, and you will be cut off once that 5 minutes is up. But we'll give you a warning as you approach that 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice President Manglonia, and the rest of the committees. Thank you for allowing us to come in and to have some dialogue regarding these bills. More specifically, I'm here because of the House Bill number 23-41 to establish an excise tax for betelnut / areca nut and lime mix afok or bweesch, no? Yeah, I got confused the last hearing. I'm sorry.
Before you proceed, also, sir, can you just state your name for the
Sorry, my name is Crispin Manglonia Sablan, and I'm a private business person and also a member of this community. And I come here to represent the many community members that have expressed their thoughts and feelings about this specific bill. And, I do encourage them to come, but unfortunately against our practices, whatever, they're not. But I did have also a petition that I did, and I don't know if you guys received my emails. I did. Yeah, there's more actually. But it's clear to me that a lot of our people are not really happy with this. Yeah, and it's normal, right? Change is normal. So, anyways, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President and Chairman Manglonia, I am writing this letter to oppose House Bill 23-41, charging excess tax on imported betelnuts, $5 per pound, and lime mix, 5 cents per ounce. I would like to express my gratitude first for having the public hearing last week. This we verbalized some of the concerns that we have. I have been thinking about this issue of the betelnut tax, and I truly believe that the legislature needs to pass a law to classify betelnut as consumable item because we consume betelnut, right? I am not comfortable and I disagree with the current idea that betelnut causes oral cancer. This is not true. Betelnut is not a thing or food for other American races, and I have to mention that because this is a racist bill, specifically targeting the Chamorros, Carolinians, Rafalawas, and Micronesians who use this daily. It's not their thing, it's our thing. Betelnut is a traditional item and herbal substance that has been practiced and used by indigenous Chamorros and Carolinians here in the CNMI for centuries. Oh, I get it. It is used and consumed with other toxic substances like cigarettes. In it are nicotine, which indeed contains thousands of toxic chemicals, which are cancer-causing substances, according to the scientific studies, which we know this, right? Yeah, a long time ago, we don't chew anything because we cannot afford, I believe, because, we grow tobacco. We don't see these things. They chewing tobacco, not cigarette tobacco. Yeah. I am not against tax increase to raise funds for the government, but to raise funds by imposing about 150%. And I'm not a mathematician, but that's my calculation, right? Increase is ethically wrong and unreasonable amount. $5 per pound on all imported betel nuts and lime. How about the local betel nuts, which we all know that majority of the betel nut plantations in the CNMI are owned by the Chinese farmers, right? I believe local products are specifically triggered to encourage local people, not outsiders, get the money and God knows where they send it, right? They don't have to pay any taxes. What's that? As a businessman, I also have plantations. But I oppose this idea because, you're talking about taxes. All right? This is a racist bill and outrageous punishment to our local consumers due to the unnecessary high tax on the consumers just to raise funds for treatment of oral cancer. And I hope we change that to prevention because I believe in education, learning about what happens to me if I do something that is not healthy for my health, and my family. I don't appreciate anyone who doesn't know and understand my culture, treating the food that I eat daily as something that is gross and bad. I also get it that, even myself, I hate people spitting all over the place. That's not our culture. That's disrespect and stupid. Sorry to say that. Those of you who are watching the TV, some of you are watching, please don't do that because it's very bad, all right? Unsanitary. I know that some of you would agree with me that the fruit bats, I have to come back to the fruit bats again, is one of the delicacies of the Chamorros, right? Today, the federal forbids us to catch and eat one of our cultural foods that we enjoy, right? We can't even bring in fruit bats from other countries because the federal said that fruit bats are an endangered species. This is a lie. All right? I said that because I did interview one of the specialists on endangered species, federal hired specialist, doctor. I happened to meet this person. And he told me, Mrs. Sablan, the fruit bat in the Marianas is not endangered species. I said, what? That's what I learned. It's
Mr. Blan,
only...
can we wrap
Oh,
it
yeah,
up here?
I'm just saying because,
Yeah.
these are connected
I
to the
understand.
betel nut.
Yes.
And we allow it. You guys are here to speak for us, make laws, and fight for us. So the same thing as the betel nut. It's not an American thing, and I'll be very clear. Americans don't appreciate this betel nut chewing because they think it's gross. It's not hide under the table and talk about this shit. Let's bring it up and talk about this. That's really bad, no? So, solution, for the fruit, but in Micronesia, it's a problem. They're eating all their crops. So, just to laugh, right? Just bring Chamorros from Saipan and Guam and they'll control the fruit bat. Okay? Yeah, we need to laugh. This is getting serious. All right. Now, we are the only U.S. citizens that enjoy chewing betel nuts. I live in Seattle for 10 years. I never see any Americans chew betel nut, only Asians. no, and eating fruit bats. These consumable products are our cultural foods and must be mindful when we agree to and allow other forces to take away things that we are so dear to us as Chamorros and Carolinians. The bitter nuts and lime we import to our Commonwealth comes from our neighboring islands in Micronesia, and I consider myself a Micronesian boy. I grew up in Saipan with friends from Palau, Yap, Ponape, Kusrai, and the Marshall Islands, just like we were brothers and sisters before we became a CNMI. Today, the federal labels us NMI residents. What is that? No, I am a resident of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, period. Let's protect our culture and traditions as Chamorros, Carolinians, Rafalawas, and Micronesians. Mr. Chairman and committee members, I hereby would like to offer my recommendations regarding this bill, House Bill 23-41.
Mr. Savan, I'll give you 1 minute to wrap up.
All right.
Please.
Number one, I would like to recommend that at least we do an online survey, to ask the local newspaper to the Mars Variety newspaper and Saipan Tribune to help our community to voice their opinion, whether they agree with this law, no? And as a wholesaler, I can tell you that I get double taxation, excise tax plus BGRT. Two, should the committee decide to act on this bill, be mindful and fair to us. Reduce the proposed $5 per pound to 50 cents. This is about 40% raise already. All right? I might be wrong. Increase in contrast to 5.46% per $2 a pound. That's the current rate of the betelnut, right? So I calculated that, and it's about 40% increase. I recommend increasing the tax in small increments, and I appreciate your comment earlier, so as not to shock the consumers, our people. Three, lastly, I recommend this committee to investigate other avenues that would be happy to help find revenues to help our Commonwealth government to deliver essential services to our community members. Top priority on my list is enforcement in tax compliance on all retail stores, big and small, gaming, gambling outlets, and other types of businesses within the Commonwealth. We need top special task force, all right, to assist the businesses to comply to our tax laws, because we all know the majority of the retail stores and housing, rental, and tourist-related businesses are owned by foreign businessmen and women with limited English comprehension to clearly understand and note the taxation laws of the Commonwealth. A close friend of mine last night mentioned to me, have you ever seen these small Chinese stores or owners go to the food stamp office in Asalito to redeem the food stamps they receive from the customers? I said, no, I never see them. He said, how can these small mom and pop stores get pick up load of food stamps and Jotun's representatives only carrying bags?
Mr. Saban, if that's
So anyway, so that's
can
my
you please
recommendation
submit
to
that
do.
to the
Yeah, I
committee and
appreciate it.
we'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate it. I hope, take this into consideration. A lot of people are affected. About 90% of our people are so concerned about this, that, and just be mindful about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saban.
Yes.
No, I'll stay with my 5 minutes. I just want to make sure now I'm understood. Hafide and buenas, Mr. Chairman and members of this distinguished body. Guahu Siliana Manglonia Sablan Hofschneider, Gaigi Zugini, Kumutesiguguzi, Igrupo ni Matua Council for Native Chamor Advancement. Gaigi Zugini sa no pabitestigudi, pabisangonyam zu por este tamanua y alatsa ni sasangan este House Bill 2391. Mamamay sinzu na kusinya in bira taktisti na House Bill gikamite ang sinya no atan sa no i Public Law 15-2 no ni a repeal i Board of no is a music consent power para i Board of Public Land no ni madama kisti i Board of Public Land zitoza sta inina zigina importante si i oficina isti i senador na lugar ni para o fan mababa todo pogo tisinya ta so gusti sa Public Law 15-2 ni mo maneneya i Department of Public Land no EDSOI Advisory Council i secretaries ani gobyerno za toza kampu an puro no public notice za ta no lumizota no public notice no ni teman maagan ni teman makonsidera pues importante neste ginago gi Public Law 2391 offer si no Congressman BJ Atto pero no i $1 million i public land para guahasya pero madibidi pero mafan karitanya i sekretarya inebo na sekretarya po no i no dididi katutinian san luta para official na programan para i homestay ni po fan matsogwi ni po fan mamidi currently i budget antilatsizu i budget i public land no halom courtesy no Mizu no report para hamzu gini gi legislatura in the past decade no 4 million kada sakkan za iginagago gimagari constitution i article 11 lilek niya na po nasuwa reasonable administrative fees. The reasonable administrative fees agogogo talo $1 million niya sasangan exactly talo na man asisita para administrative fees. So anistigi ginagago administrative fees malago zo no masangan gi publiko afa magagastay $4 million in the past 10 years. No tisinya Imaranes Land Trust oksagi izonya investment sa timafatoy sa lapi guato gi investment arm ni para invest ujung gi investment market za mas bula no earn income interest para ita ginigitano ni para na ito totono ni pamanasirbi sa diretso niya sa lapi sa nitano. Pues no fa-facing namzo na uko kontra loki wazo niya Senate miscellaneous or Department Communications si Secretary no Terry Santos ni support esti iginago no fa-facing namzo na imbira si tatis and Athens and examina offer no na mafatina si Public Law 15-2 then offer na madzamak i Board of no i governing board no gigato gi Maranes Public Land the Department of Maranes Public Land Corporation, Maranes Public Land Authority, Pago Department of Public Land no fa-fay sinamzo. Iminados no gaygizo giniloki para isti House Bill no 2368 no isti po ma-impose 10% gi private vehicles. I think last isti na public policy, debi public policy o ma-increase isti 10% para i-impact on vehicles arriving of new cars to the dealership or used cars to the second-hand cars dealership ginigitano sa no bula problema gikareta za nitalan mampus bula kareta za taza mo address isti na 10% umanay gato DPW waste management ani highway za atan isti private po impose private individuals is on your personal choice personally this is very discriminatory. Lastly malago zo na bipatsa isti second to the last is the House Bill 2341 po di pugwa excise zan i afok i betelnut zan i lime. No, first of all, kumugaygizo gimatua Council for Native Chamor Advancement discriminatory as a practice for thousands of years it's a moro man mangongas no pugwa za it's na bafanaan mama zan mamaun no ipugwa afok zan pupulo no which is intingwa fananyay no malagozo and secondly no umanasuwa palabra ni mauusa manaholo po manamoday di malog rider is the bweesch. Sa rason no sa sanganin no sa no gilingwahin i Office of Carolinian Affairs ni ni Mafatinas ki Article 3 Section 18 ki Constitution lenya Office of Carolinian Affairs. Therefore, the Office of Carolinian Affairs is not exclusive to Refalowash. And Refalowash, mind you, kagi gini ki dictionaryo, lelenya gini land, saipan, our land. Falu, land, are means people. Anina atan no the exclusive na punai za lelenya gini is in a page, introduction page na this dictionary is not representative of the other Carolinian languages that are here in the Northern Marianas. So this means I'm going back and forth so that makomprendi iman mamangi no ofalele ko no the lelenya na these words is only exclusive to Satawalis and Lamotric. And to support that, iyap ni the si Richard Totoyak, ilaim lelenya wets. Ibiduna lenya bu pepper leaf lenya gaboy. So pepper leaf gaboy ilaim lenya witch. So witch gini lenya witch. Loli lenya gini witch. So and many more giza nuchuk ti pareo giza panape ti pareo giza palau tobi say tobi and sonsorolis man staba gini giza maranas pareo na times and mangagis ti siya. Debi izota history and patatutun ni public policy patatutun man rekonisa uno nagrupon to gini people of the Caroline Islands debi nata comprendi izota historical foundation. The Constitution, covenant, and covenant is another issue in itself sa lelenya people of the Northern Marianas. So people of the Northern Marianas is tatabire toti afay Amerikano na anait $5 million gini Department of Defense gato gi High Commissioner as ngangani for the use of the Chamorro people's land in Tinian and in Tanapak Harbor. And it is on a foundational documents, a covenant leading into the first constitution. The first constitution is a moro, a recognisa, the covenant negotiation, constitution delegate, first, ma recognisa, presence, todo siya nagupalo ni mangagi ginigi sa tanota, sa tigupalo sa tawara mangagi gupalo ruk go to turuk zan igupalo zap zigi tati zan no iprimu si Maiko ang ginin palaw. So debi no na mara klaro an tatutugis ti public policy basta na patana olum no palabra ni representa uno na klasin tauto sa discriminatory at face value. Zabi faisinanzo penata ni public law 1-8 say 1-8 asasangan na boards and commission to be appointed in the Northern Marianas, come off the Northern Marianas, one must be from Rota, one must be from Tinian, one must be a woman, and one must be a Carolinian descent. Lo tadzaling na Northern Marianas descent, and tadzaling na Chamorro descent. So ino na precept of a faisinanzo gi public policy sa esta adit in the last 48 years, 49 years is tataman, no, this is the signing covenant, March 8 mes, ti mananono manay ito totano, mananono tati. The siga misinformation. Lastly, konti ko minutes.
It's over, but I'll give you
Okay,
time to wrap
last
up.
quickly. So I'm not sinanzo. So uko contrast this as very discriminatory and misinformation and farce. So lastly, is Senate Senate Resolution 2310 no magov zu pabilisti no thank you sa no isay tauto man retired no utungan ezi lawsuit no ezi no izo niya si Betty Johnson na nakulong lawsuit malig niya si 17 million ni tapos si lawyer ni kagi gipapagi downtown Honolulu malingezi para tanasetbi para tapos ya gini law hindi masasedi and we can't change that law forward ni ufa sinamzo na kusina in dan fandanya ni governor then add na resolution ni ezi 200 na retirees ni man madidadak for the past several months, several payrolls, the range from $300 to $600 every 15 days sa pogo ani man ma-retire ni siya na los prohimos madepende siya gi Board of Trustees in Northern Mariana Island Retirement Fund Board of Trustees madepende siya zan retirement fund administrator zan retirement fund pension managers and supervisors to certify po ma-certify izo niya pension request for retirement tisiya mo certify maisa siya then tisiya mo ascertain certification and application for retirement certification and application for retirement and the retirement amount rests solely on the retirement fund. So it is this detrimental reliance at the time is more than 10 years man mote sta man makokoblan is man mote gwapo man madidadak sa gwazo niya opportunity law it's public policy. Public policy stini Amzu, ti amzu, lo isi tumogi, muna donyos ti siya. So it's your responsibility, moral and ethical responsibility, pinadinansi. Sa offer, sa guaman may lihi alum senador, dyan kongreso, gini na legislatura, za timaliglay siya mo na problema. Specifically, si Senator Bweesch. Logo senador zan kongreso siya, za polo da binaoportunidad za siya fan lobby, za manadinansis ti. Lo amzu, fafaisin amzu, por favor, immediately address ti sa kada 15 days, man, there isas ti siya para man mautod kandid niya, man maomon ni karitan niya zang guman niya. Inuwa, no, dangkulo na si Zeus Masi, para tempon mizu, binalo mizu ko formo, formal comment para i-komite. Dangkulo na si Zeus Masi. Zan si Zeus Masi, no, chairman para i-naizo dito tempo.
Thank you, Ms. Hofschneider.
Then I'm malagwan just to get a reference. I told this in a reference kagi language commission and tinlili. Carolinian English Dictionary. Then tomorrow no dictionary. Kwa siya updates lo. It doesn't lie.
No, half a day and good morning and mogotin ginin ginin tinyan dyan na mapukse so aming ginin tinyan ne no ani dodo kuzo ani papadgun sa inatu no manfino ya yapis iman now dan todo siya mangagibi it has nothing to do with gini magi ginin saipan na tuna classes yan na language ginin Caroline Islands ne lo muna sasangan isti mogotin sa madim makomprendi afa na sasangan tomorrow na no Mr. President, I mean sorry Mr. Don Manglonia. No, I'm gonna speak in English briefly. I mean more briefly, but I wanna know first of all, my name is Richard U. Hofschneider. I'm an advisor and a member of the Matua Council, a part-time advisor for the Matua Council for Native Chamorro Advancement. And I'm a Tototano, I'm a Chamorro descent. I claim to be the only Tototano, Chamorro are the only indigenous people in the Mariana Islands from Guahan all the way up to the north. Mr. Senator Manglonia, Jesus Malsi, thank you, and Senator Donovan Diola, Talambay, and Senator Keith Neighbors, and Senator Magofnia, then Tori legal councils. I've appeared in this forum so many times already. So I told myself to wear this red and white so I can distinguish myself among beautiful island print going on. So anyway, I'm here to talk about several, Mr. Chairman, bill. First of all, I'm going to talk briefly about those tobacco bill. I'm not going to identify exactly which one. The beverages and alcoholic bill, and also the what you call that, the betelnut bill, and those are the three that I lumped together as to tax increase, from the House. I support the tobacco and the alcohol to increase, but how you allocate the money, is very important. And in retrospect, I was thinking the other day when I was testifying in opposition of this for the Commonwealth Cancer Association. Ms. Tenorio is right here. Good morning, Ms. Tenorio. I figured this. We're here as a nonprofit for the Matua Council and of course the Commonwealth Cancer. I think it's important that we share the increase. If this committee imposes an increase in tobacco and the beverages and alcohol and stuff like that, those two, a couple of those items, I want to have to. I agree to give certain percentage to Ms. Tenorio because it's important for the educational part, But at the same time too, I want to ask this, Mr. Chairman, Congressman Senator Manglonia, and this committee, to give to Matua Council too. as a nonprofit organization, so the Matua Council can have money to do outreach to the native Chamorro. Because a lot of the indigenous Chamorros, if we go down to, I don't have the facts now, but I know there's a high increase of alcoholism, high increase of drug use, high increase of tobacco use, and we want to do educational outreach. So if you're going to give to the Commonwealth Cancer Association, I think it's equally right to give to the Matua Council, because down in the House committee, House chamber in the lower house, and the SAPAN delegation refused to give us any budget. And we want to ask this committee that if they want to amend this to give certain percentage to us, the Matua Council, because we're representing the indigenous people throughout the Northern Mariana Islands. We're going to do outreach and so forth. And we've been doing it for many years, but we only have a certain amount of money which we put in ourselves. And also, I do 100% oppose the what's the number of that? The betelnut? House Bill 2341. I don't want to say more. What the prior commentators, Mr. Sablan and Liana and myself, I oppose this completely because it's true what they've testified, and I support what their testimony, and I oppose this 100% because it's a racist bill. It's it's targeted into our traditional thousands of years of culture in the Mariana Islands. Afok, Puga, and Pupulu are an Austronesian language, Malayo-Polynesian, and this group of because I've had experience in the University of Hawaii studying this language, and it all go the way down to Madagascar, Southeast Asia, all the way down to over here in the Mariana Islands. So we've been here for thousands of years. So this is very traditional for us. And that's why I totally oppose this, and I support what Mr. Sablan and Ms. Liana and Hofschneider are supporting those statements. And also, I want to go down to House Bill 2374 to impose an additional 3% tax on yearly gross revenue for construction activities in excess of 250,000. I want this to go up to 10%, Mr. Chairman, because with the 100 million nearly 100 million for economic EDA and other coming in, FEMA, and of course, highway funding and so forth. We need to have a lot of money from these construction companies. I know they have a BGR, but BGR it depends on the filing and depends on auditing. But this is straightforward, and I agree. I believe that 10% is good, because the issue why I'm saying this, because I remember several years ago they were trying to put remittance to tax remittance, and I remember my brother, who's a senator, trying to push this through. One of the member, and I told him, I said, they were arguing that it's double taxation. They were arguing that it's a treaty by the United States, and it's true, it's a treaty, part of the covenant. So we have to address this. How do we address this issue about making millions and millions of dollars coming in from the United States government and Asian investment, and we only have so little budget, less than 200 million. So the way to do this, Mr. Chairman, is to go and ask Congressman Kilili and Governor Palacios and work with trying to fix this treaty between Asian countries and our island. If we can fix CW and have exemptions left to right with the labor, we can do this. And that's the way to get this. And secondly, this, and on top of this increase to 10%, since 2018, we have only 725 minimum wage, senators and members of this committee. 725 minimum wage. And now you cannot hire a construction worker without $10 an hour. I just met another guy, another CW worker who goes to the agency. He's getting paid $9 because the agency gets $10. So it's very important that we have to look at this. This is how we get the revenue, and I support this bill with amendment. And lastly, I want to talk about this, one of the major one, House Bill 2391. I totally oppose this bill, 100%. And I support the MPLT. They're saying that take this $1 million and directly give it to MPLT. The reason why, because this civil action that's stated here by Congressman Atto, who's the author of this bill, civil case number 16004, is to give back to the secretary of the DPL. $34,000 to get a brand new car. Every time I go there to Joten to get food or to go CUC, I see brand new cars, DPL, left to right. And they should investigate too their spending. This body, unfortunately, Senator Selena Babauta just left this committee, but I was going to tell her that please bring in DPL and investigate DPL, their spending. Because what I heard, somebody informed me, I'm not too sure, they pay $50,000 a month. Those two at that that office. So calculate that $50,000 a month. How much money are you spending? And Article 11, Section G, says that they must have a reasonable budget. This body, we have not defined what's reasonable. And recently, MPLT Chairman Philip Long and MPLT and Attorney Robert Torres gave a letter to the Attorney General and Public Auditor to audit DPL for misappropriation and potentially fraud. So this week, Mr. Chairman, and this honorable body, we must not push forward anything has to do with DPL and MPLT until we get an answer from this MPLT inquiry about the auditing and the Attorney General. And that's why we oppose at the same time. This is related to the MPLT 15 million. So, Mr. Chairman, I oppose this 100%. And please, I ask Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to ask verbally, and I'm going to write to her, Senator Selena Babauta, under the EAG, to have a joint investigation on DPL spending and bring them in. And how come they're asking for $1 million?
Thank
And
you,
they have
Mr. Hofschneider. It's already 10 minutes. And
okay,
that's,
I'm sorry.
must
Thank you,
leave.
Mr. Chairman. Lastly, how come they have $1 million and they have $4 million every year? There's a lot of abuses. Yeah. And issue of land exchanges and appraisal value. We got to get to the bottom of this, Mr. Chairman. We're the beneficiaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and to this distinguished body, Memorias Paramzo Todos and Familia Mizo. My name is Mr. Edwin Raymond Bora Kirwa. I come to you today to oppose two bills sitting on your agenda today. And I'll start with the first one. That will be the House Bill 23-41 and also 23-91. But before I go any further, I was contemplating that this body has a duty to uphold in the best interest of the public and the Tautotano. And I want to rephrase something, and I hope I say everything correctly. A recital that it encompasses that seal in our native Tautotano town. That recital, mafananan prinimeti. Este prinimeti na testimonio para matogenya sa gaizu fundamento. Izonya fundamento kakarga inilala itzamoro na tauto na nasyon. Diyan ibanderota. Destina tinigi taginima sa gananya. Manhula zu fuyet ipapa ibanderahu notice marionas. Na para be defendi zamputei itano itasi iairi ikuturahu ilingwahihu para todo y nación Zamoro na toto para pago na tempo zani mamala siya muna. Enigi gaizu fukto sofa enigi naksakanamizu purin tsegi. pumputay. Namamano na pabisangan este na kinturun eskwelata, sistema ni eskwela. Singa insek, malaknus, pumafanagin na tinigi, pago, giskwelata, po famagunta pumatungo. Tapos na nabulam so gini, man matatatso, tazano ningo kano, iprimineti. If in Americano, I pledge my allegiance. Lo, we say that recital in English when we raise the flag. I remember I was a former Chamorro bilingual teacher under the guidance of the late Dolores Ichiara Machano. She made sure that each child knew that by heart. That was my job. I made sure. Sad to say, that's stricken out of today's curriculum. But to further make you understand my objection on that part that embodies House Bill 2341, have you all ever gone lately to the grocery store and bought a local green onion? I stand today to prove to you, go to the nearest Chinese store. There's one company here that's monopolizing that market, and it's local. Congressman, Senator Donald Maloney and you members here, are you going to tell me that a local price for green onion will cost me $8.99 a pound? What's the tax? You want to generate a tax on our tradition, yet somebody's monopolizing that, controlling that market. You know what's the reason when I asked them why is it that yellow onion costs only $1 a pound and the local onion costs 1,000% high? You know what's the reason? Oh, it's seasonal. Bumbo here. It's not. So if you're gonna induce something to tax something of a cultural heritage that we've practiced for thousands of years, then that comes also to our survival of the produce that you have to look at, because the people are the one paying for it, and you guys are not making any effort to collect revenue from that and put a cap to where it is feasible to tax and collect, and the people will still survive. That is the missing formula here. And lastly, in regards to that part, it is crazy that a local saipan betelnut will cost $1 for 5 or 6, but a neighboring island of Tinian, local, not international, not like Yap, but still, when you look at it, it's discriminatory. Why? Tinian, if you all forgot, is still within the Commonwealth. We're under one government. Why are you going to tax something from Tinian increase at 25 cents value on it just because it's imported from where? Outside our airspace or within our airspace? That you have to really look at, because that's what's happening today. They're monopolizing it on something that it should be magnified and clarified, because you're walking a gray line for a lawsuit by a consumer. It only takes one to take you all in and question you all on your decision making on the issue. Lastly, I object again on 23-91. For the mere fact that is my interest being circulated around, and yet why wouldn't nobody want to support and allocate funding for the Matua Council, where I stand behind it and I pledge my allegiance to them? Why? I see the significance of what they do today will benefit the whole in the near future. Yet that entity really, when you look at it, it has exceeded the expectation beyond my expectation, especially comparing it to the Indigenous Affairs Office. The Indigenous Affairs Office today supposed to look at this and really magnify what's causing us to come out and address these issues, because they do not have no substance behind that entity. That's where the Matua Council has stepped in all these years to promulgate their existence as Tautotono today. Well, in closing, I just want to say thank you again for your time, and I hope you give consideration to these objections of mine. Remorse again.
Thank you, Mr. Shkidwa.
Good morning, committee members, Senator Magnolia. My name is Vivica Castro. I am the Community Outreach and Marketing Coordinator of the Commonwealth Cancer Association, or the CCA. Today, I'm speaking to you both as the Community Outreach and Marketing Coordinator and as a young person in the CNMI, as one of your constituents, and one who has connections, friends, contacts with people my age and people younger. I have the pleasure of working with some cooperative education students who you met at the last public hearing, and I would like to register my support on their behalf and on my behalf for the amendment proposed by our director, Lynn Senorio, in the last session, essentially allocating 10% to the Commonwealth Cancer Association of the proceeds from House Bill 23-41. As well as 10% to Customs and the Customs Biosecurity Office. I would like to remind all of you, I could sit here until I'm blue in the face. I believe we have provided you with the empirical evidence that, simply put, pukwa, betelnut, the areca nut is a class 1 carcinogen. And I bring this up because there was a time I don't really see anyone up here arguing about the tobacco tax or alcohol tax. There was a time when cigarettes were prescribed by doctors for me, it's the far past, but it's not necessarily that far in the history of the CNMI and the history of humanity, that kind of thing. There was also a time where seatbelts were not mandated. They didn't really exist. At this time, there is a lot of attention on this particular nut. And I'm speaking because I think that it's important to fund prevention education, as well as screening. That's a separate issue, but I think that right now what our community needs is to be informed, to be educated. Habits start at a very, very young age. And as you can see from the dashboard, I believe we provided you guys yesterday. We have copies if you need more. Oral cancer is being diagnosed younger and younger. I put the little people on the table myself, and I noticed that it was very, very, very concentrated in the 40s. There was a surprising amount to me in their 30s who were diagnosed and died. So I ask you to invest in your community, to invest in the future, the next generations, as well as to really come together and act on behalf of your constituents who have a voice in politics right now, as well as those who are too young to vote. Really, I asked you the last time I was up here to consider weighing the cost of an excise tax versus the cost of oral cancer. That is not just monetarily. We have a survivor here who I hope can speak to the other consequences of it. I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Castro.
Buenas, un saludo, Tiro. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for granting me the opportunity to speak on House Bill 23-41. My name is Claudine Atalik, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I was diagnosed since May of 2021. Today, I'm not here, excuse me, to discuss my well-being, but I'm here to urge this committee to support and pass the bill that's being proposed to, excise tax on betelnut and its components. I believe if it if it goes through and gets passed, I urge and ask if a percentage be allocated to Commonwealth Cancer Association. CCA has been instrumental in my recovery, and I continue to witness the services they provide to their clients. How do I know this? Because I work for PHI Pharmacy, where we provide, the essentials for not just oral cancer. This is a CCA work with the whole cancer community, whether it's breast cancer, colon cancer, oral cancer, and every cancer that you know is related to tobacco and what have you. And I see it through work, and because we do special orders, whether it's medical supplies, enteros, or what have you. And I bring that up because CCA is, unfortunately, they operate on limited funds to help the whole cancer community. And sometimes a cancer patient will come in, and they would need certain supplies and they don't have enough. So what do? I feel like, okay, so I fork out what I can to help this patient. So I ask this committee, pass this bill and allocate, even a small amount to CCA. Bigger would be nice, but I'm asking you as a cancer survivor. With that said, I am well aware that by supporting this bill, I'm aware. I know that I'm going to be criticized. Maybe um, may face personal attacks for supporting this bill. I have, through my own family. My own family, because they think that taxing another thing, it's already bad enough. They're trying to make ends meet, but then to tax things that their livelihood, this habit, chewing and smoking and drinking and all of this. But the truth is, cancer, everything that's cancers relating to tobacco is in the rise now. And the truth is, we need to support or preserve our indigenous communities, I meant, because slowly the cancer is claiming our people. And that is why I'm here as a survivor, as an as evidence that betelnut is a carcinogen one. And it's been proven, it's a fact. And anything I ask, let's start somewhere, let's collaborate, and let's start saving our own people. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Claudine Natalie.
Thank you, Ms. Natalie.
Good morning, Chairman Manglonia and your committee. My name's Lynn Tenorio, and I'm the interim executive director for CCA. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to come back again on Thursday, since last week, to make my final appeal. I would like to also thank the conversations that I had after last week, after the session last week with Mr. and Mrs. Hofschneider and Mr. Sablan. are on opposite sides. However, we did find common ground, and we do believe in prevention. We do believe in education. And so with that in mind, I just would like to thank them also for the conversation that we had after this session. So last night I had the privilege to be at the Cancer Association's second cancer survivor group meeting last night. And it is inspiring. It's heart-wrenching to hear of their journeys, their challenges, from diagnosis to surgeries to treatment and beyond. But they are inspiring because they all feel somehow blessed with a second chance at life. And, you know, for me, sometimes you take it for granted, but they don't take a single day for granted. And that is something that was truly inspiring. But one of the things that was discussed was that they see a rise. They notice this, and they're, you know, when they go to the oncology center, they notice a rise in younger cancer patients with oral cancer. And last night there was just one oral cancer survivor, and the last time we were here, Vivica mentioned that she would call oral cancer survivors, but they're not ready to sit in front of this body, or even go out for that matter. So we have to speak on their behalf. They have needs. They look to CCA and the government for assistance. CCA is a nonprofit organization. We can only offer what we can afford. And again, we're not just talking oral cancer. We assist all cancer patients, all cancer clients that come to CCA. So let me just kind of talk about our data for oral cancer, because we support House Bill 23-41 with the amendment of giving CCA at least 10% of the money. And this is for this reason. 71% of our oral cancer clients in 2023 are either uninsured or underinsured. So they don't have the means to purchase for years their nutritional supplements that they need. And that's just one of many aids and needs, medical needs, supplies that they need, right? And so, but you need food to live. And they'll have to use either, and the minimum prescription is 1 bottle per meal per day. So we're talking 3 bottles. That's the minimums. It actually goes up. So, and then of course you have Ensure, which is probably the least expensive, all the way to another product called Jevity. And those are for, again, depending on some of your other needs. Some may be diabetic. So you can't just take Ensure. There are all these special orders, as Claudine mentioned. And so the cost is significant. They can't, we will exhaust our annual threshold. And again, we have to do this calculation, and we calculate how many we are currently serving, and we have to anticipate how many more are going to be walking through our door, right? And so I think we're averaging about 2 new clients for oral cancer as of January, February. We already have 4. So, and last year, I believe we had about 21. And so we have to anticipate more, right? Because we have the 2022, we have 2023, and then we're moving into 2024. So we have an escalating need for resources, and that's just for oral cancer. So I just wanted to explain to this body that receiving if there's going to be any tax on betelnut, please do please do give CCA a portion of that. And I will leave that to you, of course. If we're going to get 10%, that would be great. But we do need the assistance, and we really appreciate that. And I think with that, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tenorio. Floor is still open. All right, if there's no one else, we The public comments portion on the agenda is now closed, and we move on to the next item, which is new business. And then we'll just go down the list. And so we'll start off with House Bill 23-7. The House version is to amend 4 CMC 1401D to increase revenues by property taxing tobacco products. But the committee had reached out to entities and sought comments and suggestions. And so we have a proposed substitute, which is now titled to update the definition of tobacco products in the CNMI's excise tax laws, bring tobacco tax rates to the recommended level, set tobacco tax rates to increase with inflation, and invest tobacco tax revenues in health promotion and disease prevention and control programs in the CNMI and for other purposes. Discussion on the bill, members? Recognize Senator Carl.
Yes, Chairman, do we have a final breakdown of the proposed allocations for the increases?
Thank you for that, Senator Carl. Yes, we just needed clarification because the percentages weren't adding up. And so I would like to propose that for the final allocation and distribution of revenues from tobacco, the increase in tobacco, and for the excise taxes on tobacco, tobacco products, tobacco alternatives, such as vaporizable products and vaporizers, nicotine, anything that contains nicotine. The percent allocation currently proposes 5% to numerous programs and activities, mainly by CHCC, 2% to enforcement, 40% to GHLI, 40% to Medicare, 10% to Health Network program. But because the percentages weren't adding up to a full 100%, the proposal is to now allocate 35% to GHLI, 35% to Medicare, 13% to Health Network program, 3% to programs under the CHCC and other entities, 2% to the overall customs and biosecurity and revenue tax, so that's 1% each. 1% to commerce, ABTC, and then 0.5% to Rhoda Customs and Biosecurity, and 0.5% to Tinian Customs and Biosecurity. That comes out to 100. Is that correct? Sorry, that's 70, 83. Short recess. All right, we now rise back from recess. Prior to going on recess, we were discussing the allocation. The percentages I proposed summed up to 90%. The remaining 10% is what's currently in the statute, where 7% of the excise taxes collected will still remain with solid waste. And then the 3% who is for the cancer fund special account. So that comes up to a total of 100% under 4 CMC 1401G. No, 35% GHLI, 35% Medicare, 13%, sorry, Medicaid, 13% HNP. Yes. 3% to programs. It's programs and education. 2% to enforcement, particularly revenue tax, tobacco enforcement fund. No, it's just a separate fund.
So I have 99. So 35 for GHLI, 35 for Medicare, 7 for solid waste, 4 for customs EBTCs, revenue tax, and then the T and a customs, 13 for HMP, 3 for cancer funds special account, 2% for enforcement, specifically for tobacco enforcement, and it's 4%.
Divided equally between rodent and customs and biosecurity.
So that's not in the 4% that's under customs, ABTC, revenue tax, and then, oh, so 1% for team.
Sorry, let's take a 3-minute recess. Yes. Okay, so I'll restate my motion. And that is to propose the following allocations. As I stated earlier, G for CMC section 1401, 1402G. In the current statute, 1 and 2 is already allocated to solid waste at 7% and cancer fund at 3%. So the remaining 90%, which we're proposing to add a section G3, it will come out to 35% to GHLI, 35% to Medicaid, 13% to Health Network Program, 3% to programs and educational programs and education under CCC and the public schools. And then the remaining 4%, it'll be broken down into 1% to ABTC, 2% to customs, and 1% to rev and tax. But of the 1% to ABTC, we allocate 0.25 of that to each, 20.25 of a percent to each of the senatorial districts. And then of the 2% to customs, 0.5 of a percent to each of the senatorial districts. So move. All right. So the motion was made and seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? Since you're only Senator Dennis had to be excused, and so we still have the 3 for quorum, and so at this time I'd like to recognize our LA to take roll.
Senator Selena Arbabonta. Senator Carr King Neighbors.
Yes.
Senator Karina Almagofnia.
Yes.
Senator Dennis Mendiola. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 2 members are absent.
Thank you, Jolyn. With 3 members voting yes, the amendment is hereby adopted. Now back to the main motion. So, Jolyn, this would be just the overall substitute, yeah? S1. So it'll be House. The main motion is House Bill 23-7 SS1. Discussion on the main motion. Recognize Senator Magofnia.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this is this is where I would make my comments. Just quick question though on House Bill 23-7. Looking at page 2, line 6. So under the amendment, it defines cigarette as cigarette means and includes, and then everything else was stricken out until line 9. Any product that contains nicotine is intended to be burned or heated under ordinary conditions of use and consists of or contains 1, any roll of tobacco wrapped in paper or any substance not containing tobacco. So I'm just curious, does this cover like vaping products? Because vaping products do contain nicotine. It does.
The vaping products would be in part section 317.
Oh, section 3. Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Chair. That's all I have. I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other discussion? Ready? For the main motion, I recognize LA to take roll.
Senator Selena Arbabonta. Senator Carr King Neighbors.
Yes.
Senator Karina Almagofnia.
Yes.
Senator Dennis Mendiola. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 2 members are absent.
Thank you, LA. With 3 members voting yes, House Bill 23-7 SS1 is hereby adopted. We now move on to the next bill on the agenda, House Bill 2341 HD1. Discussion from the members. Recognized Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So, sorry, let me just pull this up. I don't recall seeing a fiscal impact analysis with the committee report when it was transmitted to the Senate. Do you by any chance have or were provided that?
Not from the House, no.
And
Uh,
I mean, in listening
Sorry,
to.
my apologies.
Oh, there is.
There was. Jolyn, do you have a? Sorry, the LA will make copies and pass out to
Okay.
members.
Ja-
Do you have
and
further
Do
discussion?
you know who where the report came from? From the fiscal
Fiscal
analyst.
analyst from the House.
Did we? Did we get some type of analysis from that was collected from the business community who will be impacted by this legislation to determine whether or not the objective of this bill will actually, receive the projected revenues that is being proposed. And the reason I ask that is because I understand the intent of the bill, and that's to generate revenues. But, at the same time, we all know and understand that for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction to those actions. And I wanted to know, what the analysis says, because if I am not against the intention of the bill, because I do realize that we need the revenues. However, we want to be mindful that we are not countering the objective by imposing such a large percentage, as you had mentioned earlier, Chair, probably a gradual increase of the tax versus a one-time 5% tax on the betelnut. But more importantly, what I wanted to capture in this is that if the intent is to generate revenue and we impose this tax on the businesses that will be affected, what kind of analysis do we have to show that by increasing the excise tax on the betelnut, that it would not harm and put the businesses in jeopardy or at risk of actually closing their businesses? Because that would completely, you know, go against what they're intending to do, which is to increase revenue. If the increase in general in the excise tax for betelnut has a financial impact on the businesses, which will ultimately force them to close down, then that completely defeats the purpose. And, we get, the government gets its revenue through the BGR, but if the businesses are closing down because they are unable to sustain themselves because of the increase in taxes, I mean, I would like to see some sort of analysis from the fiscal analyst at the House or our own, to ensure that we can substantiate that kind of change. And if not the 5%, then maybe propose a gradual increase if, we have our fiscal analyst here, Chair, so.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We did get what the projected revenue will look like from finance with the proposed rate. But if I can ask the fiscal analyst, do we have today's rate and how much?
Chair, if I may, Chair, first, thank you. Recognize the concern of Senator Megofnia. When you look at the analysis presented by the Secretary of Finance, I think it's prepared by the Office of the Customs. Okay, the analysis there is really, unbelievable, because the methodology that they're using today, for example, if it's, let's say, 500 pounds of betelnut, it's weighted at 50 pounds, for example, and the rate per pound, they're using dollar. So that's $50 per invoice. Then they use a rate, ongoing rate. I think they're using a rate of $1 or $1. So that's basically, I'm sorry, 1%. So that's basically $5. That's how they will compute the tax. But right now it's different. If it's 50 pound, right? And you tap the rate, no, of now we're charging them $5 per pound.
Right now.
Right, with this bill. So
The
50,
way we're charging them right now.
right now, $1.
$1. Okay.
So you can do the math there. It's about 400% increase.
Yes.
But if you go further and apply the rate, they're using the rate of 5% on this
And this
plan.
projection.
Yeah, and that will tremendously increase the revenue that will not be afforded by the businesses. So I don't think this is right. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Recognize Senator King Neighbor.
Thank you, Dave, for that insight. Given that we haven't done or been provided proper analysis, if there's no objection from the chairman and the members, I ask that we hold off on these bills, namely the remaining tax increases, so that we can further get some information and analyze what the impacts these might be. So move.
Thank you, but sorry, before we act on your motion, Senator King Neighbors, would the members like to provide would like to propose a type of increase that we could also include as part of this calculation to kind of differentiate the impact of what a certain amount or percentage would be?
Just I can't speak for Madam Floor, but for myself, I kind of would like to see the numbers and the hard data, like not only percentages but the actual dollar amount, so that I can be guided clear, if that makes sense.
I would have to agree with Senator Carl. I mean, it's kind of hard to make recommendations right now if we don't have, realistic numbers in front of us. We can talk hypothetical all day long, but the reality is we really need to know what kind of impact this would have on the businesses, because what we don't want to do is close them down. That would completely defeat the purpose of generating the revenue. So, I understand the need to increase the revenue, but what is realistic so that we're not, hurting our businesses to the point where they are, on the verge of closing down, because that would completely defeat this proposed legislation. Chair.
Chairman, if I may, I also think it's important, in line with some of the concerns that were brought up by other stakeholders, of the effects that are not necessarily evident in the legislation, insofar as increases in crime, theft, so forth and so on. So I just want to bring that to the committee's attention and ask that we just get some more information so we can properly assess how we should move forward with the allocations.
Okay. Well, just for the members' information, and as you may see in the committee report by the House, the current rate for betelnut is a 5% ad valorem and then a 0.42 beautification tax. And so within the span of maybe close to a year, the current collection in today's rate would be 13,966, and that the proposal of $5 per pound, inclusive of the now beautification tax of 42 cents or 42%, 0.42%, would go up to 1.2.
Sorry, Chair. I mean, just looking at this analysis, with the total tax assessed for, currently from October 2022 through September of 23 is at 13,000, and we are proposing to collect 1.2 $1.2 million if we increase the tax. I mean, look how significantly that increase is. I mean, is that fair to the business? And can they even afford it? Right? That's a huge increase from 13,000, 14,000 to 1.2. I think we need a little bit more time and a little bit more analysis done on this. And like I said, I am not against the intent of the bill, but we need to be realistic, and we need to make sure that we are not doing the opposite, and forcing these businesses to close down, because that would completely defeat the purpose of this legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. In addition, analysis was provided by the Department of Finance, which was shared with the members, and we can use that to further identify the trend. As you know, the information provided by finance as of fiscal year 2024, from fiscal year 2020, we've seen a significant decrease in imports. Back in 2020, we were importing about 507,000 pounds. And as of fiscal year 2023, that dropped to almost a little over 50%. It's at 264,263.
Sorry, Chair. But for clarification, the decrease is as a result of what? Because it seems like we fall in the period during the pandemic. So that could be one reason why we see a significant decrease, right? But there
Right.
has
But
to
even coming out of the pandemic, like fiscal year 2022 to 2023, it went from 376 to 264.
do we understand what were the causes of those decrease? Like we kind of have to understand.
Right. I understand that. I don't know how many lists of suppliers are there. I know we have one in the audience.
Well,
I mean, this is a committee meeting. He doesn't have to be invited. But Mr. Sablan, is that something that you'd like to share as to why the trend?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. Yeah, as an importer, and I've been doing this business for over 30 some years. Yeah, I see the trend, and right now, to make the long story short, it's all about costs. Just to bring the betelnut here, sometimes we have to fly the betelnut here. A lot of times. Doris, the attorney, Robert came here and said, I see them with bins. So damn hard, expensive. That's the challenge. And thank you, Senator Magofnia, for mentioning that. It will kill us. The freight, I calculated sending the freight, my cargo, right? Which also a damn high risk. Could be bump off in Guam or bump off at the original station, Ponape or Yap. Those are damage. Nobody wants to buy that shit once it becomes yellow. High risk. It's a high risk business. A lot of anyways, so it's about the cost, no? And she mentioned something earlier about how is this going to impact the businesses. The betelnut, I call it the getter item. It brings the people to the store. The first thing they're going to ask you, if you're the owner, so you have betelnut? Say no, they work on it. Once you say yes, yeah, they get Pampers, they get drinks, they get blah, blah, blah. And you're going to use their card. So they don't want to have no betelnut there. They'll lose their customers. So it's a very sensitive thing for all the stores to. And if we continue to go up the prices, and I'm complaining because I think this body should take a look at that too, how they charge us with the rates.
No, but even so, Mr. Sablan,
Yeah.
like from 2020, we were importing 500,000, and then
Yes.
today 260,000.
Yeah, it's a lot
Is that
of
mainly the cost of freight?
the high cost to bring the betelnut, the mechanism we have to put in place to be able to bring the betelnut. I'm talking about getting a flyer, that have the documentation, the shots during the pandemic, he said that, and all the things that we need to go through to be able to bring the product. It's so challenging. Yeah. So it's all about cost. So you see almost half of the people that are bringing in or been sending because they risk paying a lot of money and then got stuck in Guam and throw away. Or stuck there in Yap or Ponape, throw away. No? Because the freight charge is so expensive. Yeah. Anyways, it's all
Senator
about cost.
King, neighbors, you have a question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sablan. I just had a quick question. So you mentioned obviously one of those secondary consequences at the store in the event a vendor might not have betelnut for whatever reason. That might be one of the reasons why a customer might not want to do all of their shopping at that location. Can you speak briefly to what your understanding is? You as a wholesaler, obviously you bring in the goods. How is it then provided to the individual vendors, and will those costs be passed on to them and then on to the individual consumer?
Yeah, of course. If you raise up the price, customers will be also getting pissed off, And to make it worse, they will be depending on the local supply, because the local supplies are cheaper, by 25 cents. The stores sell it at $1, the imported betelnut at 125 because of the cost, right? So if they don't have betelnut, nobody wants to go to the store. So and when it's too high and people don't buy, it's really going to affect them.
But could you speak towards the wholesale capacity, like that part specifically? So you as a wholesaler, how
as a wholesaler too, if people don't buy, and
speak to that process.
Yeah. Okay. So if the stores don't buy, the stores is guaranteed 100% for any damages. We took that as a wholesaler. So if they don't buy it, then damage, we absorb it. They never lose. These retail stores, they never lose. We're the one taking all the hit. Yeah. So making it more expensive and people don't buy it. And of course, the stores also will be kind of down because their revenue will go down, right? Yeah. It's really, really crazy. Even the cigarette company, they come to say, "Hey, Sablan, what's the betelnut?" Say, "Why?" I can tell because our sales is down. I say, "Well, I have a problem, a big problem." So it really, not only the consumers, even the operators of the stores, they're affected. It's a massive disastrous thing, to have this, something that will block the customers from getting this product that they use daily. I'm sorry, as a businessman.
No,
right?
I understand.
Yeah.
Has there been a decrease in demand from consumers? Because I mean, even if the imports have been dropping, you're saying due to freight.
And another thing also, people they complain about the price, right? I said, "Hey, Anya, I know you got plenty land, right? Don't you plan on in your house? You want seeds? I can give you." I encourage them to plant. So that's probably one of the reasons why. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but my question was because you said that one of the main reasons why there's a decrease in imports is because of the price of the shipping. But at whatever price the shipping is, aren't you passing that on to the consumers? And
of course.
Right, but why was there still that
because
decline in the trend?
Senator, as an importer, and if you bump off my cargo in Guam and I cannot sell it here, that's a big loss. So they lose a lot of money. That's why a lot of people stop. All right. So that takes away the capacity of bringing in the betelnut, and we can only bring in so much. Cannot just like that. Take high risk. Cannot say, I want to bring 2,000 pounds or 1,000 pounds. No, I have to be considerate because we're using the passenger plane, right? The cargo plane is limited and it's very inconsistent, non-dependable, very high risk.
I recognize Senator King neighbor.
Yeah.
So just kind of piggybacking off of Chairman's line of thinking, I guess, help us understand, right? If you're at, say, 400,000 pounds per whatever, if now the argument is X amount of wholesale providers are no longer bringing into the region, What do you do as a remaining wholesale provider, or one of the remaining, to like, what do you do to offset your business model
Yeah.
to provide for the because
Yeah.
even though the number of imports remain, obviously the demand was at 400,000, but the imports dropped. So what do you
Yeah.
do as a provider then?
Well, I take a look at the demand, you know. And again, I mentioned it's a high risk thing. Cannot take too much risk to lose, you know, because these products are being replaced
Consumed, yeah.
100% by us, not the stores or the customers, no. And so it's really a paradoxical question. You know, I like to bring in more when the demand is there, right? Yeah.
So just lastly, for the sake of dialogue, because obviously we're always trying to find a happy medium. We don't want to just have one idea. What would be from your side if there was a reasonable number to increase the rate? What would be a reasonable rate for
Well,
you?
yes. You know, I do my calculation,
Sure.
and I'm not really a mathematician, right? No? So based on the calculation that I did, you know, I mentioned on my report, and I believe I emailed you guys. To raise up to that $5 per pound. Well, a good a good one would be 50 cents. Why? Because that's already more than 40% compared to the current rate that we're paying, right? Yeah. But for me, you know, I like to help my government too. I know a lot of these people are going to, why you say that one? You know, I say, well, you know, yeah. But again, I'm hurting inside of me because I know. Why would the legislature propose a law to take away the birna from consumable item? No, which is 1%, to be fair. That's one of the things that I'm concerned about this. But, you know, it's already been practiced, right? Let's go from there and take a look at what makes sense. And I believe people will not be complaining too much about that. And I'm the only one actually that is a non-FSM citizen importing, right? So they always look at me and say, hey, Sablan, hey, are you going to raise the price? Sir, our people, my friend. You know, I'm saying because, you know, competition is good. I like competition. So in terms of business, you know, we take a lot of loss, especially when it's plenty beer nut here. We cannot sell the beer nut because you cannot compete. It's all about the price, right? Yeah. But specifically, some people cannot chew the local beer nut for some reason. They always ask me, said, buy the local beer nut, my friend. No, I cannot chew that. It make me so easy to get, burn, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So many reasons.
Thank
So
you.
anyways,
Vice Chair, recognize.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, Mr. Sablan, so can you just help us then kind of understand where we are right now? Let's first establish whether or not obviously there's a demand for import betelnut. Has it increased, decreased, or no change in your business, in your line of business?
yes, ma'am. It did decrease, you know. And
So
for me,
you've seen a decrease in the demand for import.
It is a decrease actually. So of course we
So you
went down.
follow. So there's a decrease in demand. You also decrease your importation.
And a lot of it, I'm sorry to say that, a lot of it, one of the main reasons again is this propaganda for me. Instead of educating the people that are chewing, they're saying beer nut is cancerous. And of course, if I see my brother or my sister got cancer, right? Shit, no, I don't want to die. You know, it's. sorry. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's really misconception about this, and as person as a chewer, I eat beer nut. You know, I understand that there's ways to chew. That's why I have to go back to the education and be honest to the consumers. And how do you do this? No, yeah.
So in your line of business, you have seen the demand for imported betel nuts decrease.
Decrease risk.
And you're saying that one of the reasons why, one of the factors is because of the misconception of betelnut. But are there any other factors that you know of that could be causing the decrease in demand?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, is the high
The
cost, right, and the high
shipping
risk
cost.
that we face on a daily basis to bring this product in.
So it's not
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much the demand, it's so much on the supply side on your end, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you are decreasing the import of imported betel nuts because of the increasing cost of shipping. So it's not really on the demand side.
It also has to do with the demand, because when there's a lot of local betel nut available, I hear a lot of people, oh, they stole my betel nut, oh, blah, blah, blah. It goes down.
So it's seasonal.
It's seasonal, rest,
Okay.
yes.
So
And of course, if there's no betel nut here, there's fewer, the demand goes up, no? But
Okay.
going back to your question, what make this, decrease in terms of the importation, right? One of the big reason is the losses that companies actually, for some reason, I'm still around. We get zero, damage from the airline. I submitted all my claims. I said, it's not your fault. They canceled the flight. I said, yeah, but where's my claim? Zero. Up to today. Thousands of dollars that nobody knows actually. So I told the stores, my friend, why are you raising? Wait. I have to study the movement of the airlines and how can I bring this thing? He said, Harry, so a lot of times we fly. So I found out that if you check in the baggage, it's going to be there, right? Cargo, last priority. Next priority will be the U.S. mail. I said, hey, they don't spoil. I said, well, that's the federal. Okay, cannot fight with that. So anyways, it's the reason why.
So they're
one of the
finding
main-
other avenues to bring in the imported betel nuts other than the usual cargo to evade paying the excise tax on it. Is that what you're saying?
The excise tax, like I said, the system is there to pay the tax, it's,
Sure. But if they're using other means to bring the betel nut in, that's something that they're not paying
paying
on.
tax?
So the collections report would be understated.
That's another, thank you. Now I got your question. A lot of people come in actually and bring betel nut. I said, oh, what's this? You have license? Oh, no, it's for my family. 3 big boxes, How the hell can you justify that? So again, going back to enforcement and coming up with a specific quantity, right? Reasonable quantity. Because those people are competing with us and they sell it cheaper also to the store because they want to get rid of it, no? They sell it by the box. And they don't even pay licenses, tax, nothing. So a lot of
Okay, so that's definitely an area that we need to look
yeah,
into.
and it's not reported also.
That's what I meant, Nay.
The custom,
If they're bringing
yeah,
it in
yes.
in some other form or way,
Yes.
then the collections is underreported because they
Yes,
are
yes,
not
yes.
paying on.
Being reported and caught because they claim it as personal.
Yes.
But
Okay.
370 pounds of betel nut, that's the baggage.
So you're saying they would pay for someone's ticket to pick it up and then
Bring it in and without
Bring it in
license
as
and
a-
say, oh, it's for my family. Yeah, how many families? These are Yapis people or Ponapian people. Oh, how many families have you, my friend?
Would you happen to know the actual number of businesses such as yourself that bring in those the betel nut?
Yeah. Roughly about maybe 10 or 12
10
companies.
10
yeah.
to 12 suppliers.
Yeah, suppliers, yeah.
Okay.
Importers. And it can only bring in so much too because of the high risk, right?
Yeah. And talking about the high risk, so you talk about, the flights potentially being bumped off in Guam or whichever island. How often does that happen? What's the frequency?
Very, very frequent.
Very
So
frequent? What's your
people like
definition
myself,
of very frequent?
Frequent meaning can happen every week.
Every week?
Yeah.
It's frequent?
Yes. And I noticed that, in the flying things, there's a high peak and low peak, right? When it's low peak, I take advantage because the chances you will be arriving, right? But on a high peak. I don't want to take that chance. So we fly. We buy tickets to bring people. Yes. But yeah.
Just real briefly, do you capture that information? Do you have that
Yeah.
data on hand to provide to
On-
the
on
committee?
hand?
Yes.
Oh, you can take a look at
the
the airlines.
but just
trend.
just yourself.
Oh,
Do you
myself,
capture
you
the
know,
because you said
like
you
like
said,
heading towards the holidays.
because you
You
said
know,
you would make claims, right? So that would be and then the airlines would say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't do those. So
They
do you
never-
as a private, just yourself as a business, do you annotate or keep records of how many of those events happen?
yes, yeah. The damages that we incur from being bumped off. You know, I'll say we're averaging roughly for my company about 500 pounds damage
Per week?
per week. If I bring it, if it's dry season, on a high, like with the season here, I'll save hundreds of pounds of damages because of that problem that they delay in Guam. And sometimes they're good. They put it in the chiller and said, hey, we don't chill this thing. We keep it fresh. Oh, Sablon, you know, it's hot here. So, you know, it's, I don't know.
Sorry, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah, yeah.
understand
Yes.
the situation. So do we know and understand what causes those flights to be bumped off? I mean,
Well,
if it happens
my-
frequently on a weekly
my,
basis,
My idea is, you know, they, first of all, you know, most of these people, they don't really care, really. And they actually, I don't know, probably the boss is an American guy. Just bump off those betelnut, my friend.
I mean, that's an assumption.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, I mean, if I'm the boss for the cargo and said, hey, hold off the mail and send this shit because it's gonna.
I guess I'm asking
you know,
these questions because I want to be able to use facts and not assumptions.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so important
Yeah.
that we understand and we have the facts in front of us to be able to make decisions on legislations like this. And so I understand what you're saying and the challenges that you have faced being in this business. But I mean, it'll be really helpful if you can share with us your data as to the, you know, you
Yeah.
you know,
You
just
know,
your notes so that we can really see, you know.
Yeah. It's a lot, you
Yeah.
know, and that's why, you know, a lot of people, so they just
the
stop.
dollar amount.
They just stop because it's too much, you know, and I don't know, just
Are you able to share with us approximately how much in value you lose, you know, by these frequent?
right. Okay,
Um,
just the minimally, yeah, just to bring the betelnut. If I pay the freight, it'll be $2.50 per pound,
Okay.
minimally. All right, and then of course we pay people to prepare these things and the betelnut, blah blah blah. You know, depending on the season, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, thousands of dollars actually. We-
Thousands of dollars
Yeah.
per week, per month, per quarter, per
you know,
annually. I'm just trying to
yes,
assess
yes,
the
yes, yes.
situation so
I
that
know,
we
I
can
know, I
have
know.
a better understanding
Yeah,
the financial impact that it
yeah,
has.
in my case, I said probably you know hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds of dollars per week.
A week, yeah,
Okay.
sometimes $1,000. You know, It
And so
goes- it
so
goes
that
up
kind of
and
leads
down.
me to my next question
Yeah,
is using you,
Yeah,
a real business,
Yeah.
conducting your importation of betelnut from FSM. Um, what would this mean to you? Like right now, I don't know how much you're spending, you know, your average expense on importing those betelnut. And should this legislation be passed and enacted at 5%, can you paint us a picture of what your cost would be so that we can see visually the financial hardship that it would impose on your business?
Yeah, it's
and
going to
and
be a
what
lot
that would
actually.
that-
You know, just take a look at the the price that they're going to be imposing on us, on the excess tax. You know, $5 per pound. That's a lot. You know,
I mean, I see
I have-
it's
I
a
have
it's
to
a 400%
pay, like-
increase, but
like-
I want to know like dollar figure, right? So how much is
Yeah.
it costing you right now at $1 per pound
Yeah.
versus the proposed $5 per pound?
Yeah.
We just want to visual, see that visually,
It's
so
going to
that
cost my company thousands of dollars, and that will kill my company. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, per week, not per month.
can you give us
I'm an importer. I can bring in 500 pounds, right? So you do the math. 2-3 times a week. No? So that's how much I'll be, yeah.
how much are you bringing in per week? In pounds.
Depending on the, the demand.
Average,
1,000 pounds.
1,000 pounds.
Oh, we
per
don't want to
week.
give away his.
No,
his whole
I'm just,
business
well, I
model.
mean, he said we could do the calculation ourselves. So in order to do the calculation, I need numbers.
Yeah. I cannot really tell you
Oh,
everything about
okay,
it,
maybe
but,
not,
I'm
maybe.
just trying to be honest.
Sorry,
but-
Mr.
but-
Sablan.
but-
I just, as the conversation goes, these things just pop
It's a
in
lot
my
of
head and
money,
it just
yeah.
comes out.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to put you on the, give it away the secrets. Sorry. Maybe
Yeah,
we
the
can.
thing is, thank you for trying to understand these things, and I know you're honestly trying to understand, right?
I am, yes.
The bottom line is it's the cost, and raising up the tax would definitely hurt
Right,
us
and this
would
conversation is
kill
trying
us.
to help us
Yes. Yeah.
determine and understand what would be a reasonable tax increase. I know you've already said 50 cents,
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
reasonable.
And the idea of the president and the vice president mentioned about gradually increasing, right, to make the people get used to it, blah, 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 would be good. But again, deep down in my stomach, I know this is wrong. Why are you treating betelnut as dangerous drugs? Blaming the betelnut. And, we can debate about this and about whatever. But, again, as a Chamorro and Palawas, consider that, because this is not anything like that. It's something that only Chamorros from the Northern Banana Islands and Guam use this, that are U.S. citizens. And I'm sorry to our brothers, the Caucasian people, they don't understand. That's all right. No? But I'm here because of the many, many people that are so concerned, angry as hell. Yeah. I say, hey, relax. Why are you?
I mean, I'm
Like,
pretty
they're
sure the
blaming me.
consumers are the angriest, right?
Yeah, and-
Because they will absorb the cost. But and I understand that, but my concern here, at this time is the impact that it would have on business owners such as yourself who are in the business of bringing in this betelnut. And like I said, I just want to make sure that we are not doing the opposite effect of it, where it will actually force you to close your business down, because there goes the revenues that they are projecting to receive from this tax increase. So that's all. I just want to.
Deeply affect the entire actually retail stores in Saipan. If we cannot bring it because it's too expensive, right? Of course, the stores will be sad. Oh, what happened? Blah blah blah. Yeah. So this is really an incredible thing. It's a very sensitive thing, actually.
I never
And,
really thought about the scenario that you provided earlier, where betelnut chewers actually, when they get to a store, the first thing they ask is whether or not there's betelnut, and if there's nothing, they just walk away, right? I didn't even realize that is a scenario.
Just
But
talk to
I
the
could also
owners.
see the impact that it has on the stores themselves, right? Because that's lost revenue, potential revenue that they could have generated just by a person walking in to buy a bag of betelnut. So I thank you for sharing that, because I didn't even.
Vice Mayor, let me just clarify the methodology in the application of the excess tax. With the present procedure, what you do is you take the number of pounds, multiply by $1, then you assess 5% excess tax. In this legislation that we're working on, we're just going to take the number of pounds and multiply by $5. And that's how the revenue is going to be generated. So when you look at the worksheet the chairman has presented, that's why it went up that substantially, because the methodology in computing the revenue or the tax is too much versus the methodology that is being practiced today. So that's the major differences on collecting the revenue on this legislation. It's the way the rate is applied, and that's a major increase on the tax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sablan, for shedding light on some of the concerns and questions that the members have. I know that there was a motion made by Senator King Neighbors. Can I get a second on that motion?
Sorry, what was the motion again? Table? Table for further discussion. Got it. Second.
All right, a
Chair.
motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The House Bill 2341 is hereby tabled to get additional calculations prepared in terms of the different the rates that members will consider in if we decide to apply a tax, an additional tax to it. And so once our fiscal analyst prepares that and is shared with the members for review, we can schedule another committee meeting to determine how we want to proceed with this particular bill. Recognize
Chair,
Vice Chair.
Would you like to kind of set a timeline so that we know, when to come back instead of just kind of leaving it open? I would also like to ask our fiscal analyst if you could do a comparative analysis of the different rates so that we could see, the different figures as the rates go up, so that we can, discuss amongst ourselves, which rate would be
Yeah,
reasonable.
but maybe in increments of 50 cents.
Yes.
And then we can kind of see how what that would look like
Yeah.
in
And
terms of revenue generation, but also in light of the challenges that the business community will be facing. With
Okay.
that.
And so about a week or two,
As
so
soon
that-
as the fiscal analyst finalizes the report, we can even have it in not our next committee meeting, which is Monday, but
Another.
subsequent to that.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next bill on the agenda is 2368, House Substitute 1, to impose a 10% ad valorem tax on private individual purchasing vehicles from dealerships or private parties outside the CNMI, excluding businesses or commercial entities, and for other purposes. Discussion on that bill. I just want to state one concern. These are concerns that we heard at least from the two districts, first and second. With Rhoda, it's all about the distance. Whether it be quicker and cheaper to get it from Guam versus getting it from the CNMI. And even if we get it from the CNMI, CNMI already adds on their freight when it comes from other countries or other areas, and then we also pay the additional freight just to get it from Saipan to Rona. And so this places a lot of burden on the people wanting to even buy cheaper cars because it's expensive to get brand new cars, right? One of the proposals that was brought up in the public hearing is, why don't we look at luxury vehicles? Those are people that have disposable income to spend on these niche brands, and so I think maybe once we get the consensus of the members, if this is the route that we're willing to take in terms of taxing vehicles, then I think we should impose a tax on luxury vehicles, and we would need to define that also further. But I don't know. I just want to throw that out there and get a sense of what members would like to do with this legislation, whether it be to table or to look further into that proposal. And so I recognize the vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. I 100% agree with you. I think we should consider imposing the tax on the luxury vehicles versus all vehicles in general. As you said earlier, the luxury vehicles are normally purchased by, individuals who have the disposable income to do so, and so it would be, I think it would be fair to impose a tax on them and not on the masses. Uh, do we want to table this to?
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's
But
something that we can
I do
consider.
support your
Yeah, thank you.
your
Thank you, Vice
recommendation.
Chair. I
Thank you.
recognize Senator King Nevers.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also agree with the floor leader as well as the chair with regards to, I think, some of where we want to come from with this legislation. And I guess my question would be to council, would we need a separate bill that has to come to the House to do what we're dialoguing on right now? Or could this be a vehicle in the form of a substitute?
I think we can just keep the same bill and make certain amendments so that it only taxes certain vehicles or luxury vehicles. I just quickly Googled what is a luxury vehicle, and it's a luxury car makers use high quality parts, including expensive interior materials, etc. I mean, that was the quickest definition that I could find. But I think here's a luxury vehicle brands. Aston Martin, BMW, Bentley, Rolls Royce, Mercedes, Benz, Jaguar.
So
I think we can keep the bill, just modify and define what's a luxury vehicle, maybe even to include year it's made,
amount value, right?
the value of the car, vehicle.
So I think, Chairman, if we can hold this in committee and go back and make the requisite amendments to change the bill so it reflects the intent that we think should be.
Thank you, Senator King Nevers. Senator Magofia.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd also like to propose and consider, Chair, that we should probably not have a fixed percentage across the board. I think we should have some brackets according to the value of the car. And so they're not imposing a 10% on it. Because for some luxury cars, let's say a Lexus, right? You could actually get a Lexus that is in the price range of 30 to 40,000. And it's not necessarily considered luxury because it's it's not the class.
So a bracket based on price point of the
Yeah,
vehicle.
and so we probably need to determine at what price or value we will start the taxing and have different tax rates per
Yeah.
value. Yeah.
Well, we'll work on thank you for that, Vice Chair. I think one of the things we're going to work on is maybe the definition of luxury, and then even if there are other jurisdiction that applies that percentage based on price points or blue book value and stuff like that. Okay, so I just wanted to see what the consensus was from the committee, and it sounds like this bill is still something that we will proceed with the understanding that it'll change from a personal purchase from private individuals outside the CNMI to a new set of standards, which is applying a tax to luxury vehicles. With that, any objections to tabling House Bill 2368? All right, if there's none, we move on to House Bill 2378 HS1. Discussion on that bill. Soft drink and alcoholic beverage containers. Recognize Senator King Neighbors.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The way I understand the intent of this bill, at this point in time, I can't support the increase in tax that is being proposed, mainly because we already have, there's already a commodity prices and commodity disparity on the islands of Tinian and Rota. I did support the tax increase for tobacco, as there is a dire need for funding the health network program, as well as the other earmarks that were stipulated in the tobacco increase. But as for myself, I can't support this bill.
Thank you, Senator King Neighbors. Any other discussion? I think maybe one thing to consider, and this is something that we can table for now, but to consider going from 5 to 15th is such a huge proposed increase. You're talking about 10 cent, additional 10 cents per container. And this only pertains to soft drink and alcohol containers without considering fountain drinks or mixed drinks, which if the intent is to kind of limit the intake of sugary drinks and alcoholic beverages that may affect your health, then we should open this up to all consumable products that would affect our health in this sense. But then also that all the revenues that would come from these additional taxes, I think at this time would probably be more beneficial to help continue supporting programs that that support the, so until we get a better understanding of the fiscal impact of tobacco tax increase on the revenue we provide to these programs, this may be another avenue that we can use to continue funding those programs if there's additional shortfall in the future. We do have a sugar sweetened beverage tax proposed. It was a proposed provision that was included in the previous budget year. That one dealt with a wide range of sugars and sweetened beverages. I don't agree. I understand Senator Carl's argument. I don't agree on the 10 cents increase. We can reduce that, but then also not leave the appropriation open to just the general fund without the, when there hasn't been much effort made into downsizing or cutting costs. Here we are pushing more money into the general fund, which I understand will restore hours back to hopefully full-time status. But even today we've seen so much disregard for the conservation period that we're in terms of power utilities, in terms of vehicle usage and stuff like that. So if maybe next budget year there's some mechanism that kind of addresses this, whether it be merging agencies or cutting costs further, then this is something that I would support, in that sense that we're downsizing or cutting costs and using additional revenues to help bring back people to full-time status. At this time I recognize the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this bill. I do support the intent of the bill, but perhaps, as you stated earlier, maybe the 10 cents is just a bit too high. We also have to be cognizant of what's going on in our economy and our financial condition. And that, I think it was just in the paper, was it earlier this week or last week, where we are potentially facing a $20 million deficit for this fiscal year. That being said, we have to be mindful that, although the intent of this legislation is to generate more revenues, if this legislation passed as is at 10 cents increase, what there will definitely be a significant impact on our consumers. The $20 million deficit says a lot, and I have information that has been shared with me that their finance is revisiting and recalculating its projections, its revenue projections and collections, because there is a possible adjustments to the budget because of where we are right now financially. We are not meeting the projected revenues that we had anticipated to receive, and increasing. And what that means, right, when we adjust the budget, is that there's going to be cuts, whether it's hours or but most likely hours. So that's definitely something to consider, because that really reduces the purchasing power of our consumers when their hours are cut, because now they are receiving less pay. And so I think this is something that we need to really look at it and just do a little bit more analysis on what taking into consideration where we are right now, because I believe when this legislation was introduced, it was sometime last year. Well, a lot has changed in the past few months, and I think we need to take those factors into consideration and just do a little bit more diligence in our analysis, and perhaps instead of the 10-cent raise, I don't know. Maybe we could ask our fiscal analyst to also prepare, comparative analysis on the different increments. So that's just something to consider. Where we are financially, where we are headed, and see what makes sense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice. Recognize Senator King Never.
Thank you, Chairman. And along those same lines, I think it's important for us to remember what we as a legislature have done in the past year. During March, we began the revised and reenacted, removing all of the ARPA employees, which were about 700 some employees. That was immediately after the 23rd legislature began. So that impacted, of course, again, the buying power of almost 1,000 people immediately. And then we began in the next budget cycle to reduce hours and holidays. So that's another hit. I completely agree. I think we just need to be mindful of all of those things that have now compounded. And when this was being first entertained, I don't think we envisioned all of those financial remedies to be taken into effect in such dramatic fashion. It was immediately and precipitous. So I just hope that the members can just keep that in the back of our minds as we make decisions moving forward.
Thank you. And just one more comment that I want to make is just that, we're short on collections in the current rate. And so by increasing taxes on, these commodities, it's like, we don't expect to receive this revenue. If we're not expecting to receive this revenue, why make it much more difficult to import and apply this tax on excise taxes? But we can table this until such a time we get further answers from Department of Finance, and as we look at the budget proposal that should be coming in the next few months, then we can kind of analyze the situation that we'll be in next fiscal year and determine whether the tax on just these two items how much effect that would be on future collections as well. Dave, did you have something you want to add?
Something with the members that I think the biggest issue that we're facing right now with the revenue projection is how they project the revenue projection. Because when you look at the results, right, the revenue collected, for example, versus revenue estimated is most of the time understated or overstated. When I say overstated, it means they projected more than what they would collect. So that will give us a sense of like we're gonna be, but then when the collection comes, it's short. So they have to be at least have a guideline as to how much percentage error would be on the projection, so that we don't commit a lot of expenditures out there when we are not going to be receiving the revenue as projected. No, so maybe 5% error or 10% would be acceptable, but anything beyond that, that will put us in a very big hole. That's all. That's all I want to
Yeah.
point out.
But I mean, just I don't know. Maybe Dave, you can add on to this. Second quarter is where we may see an increase in revenues because of the taxes that become due, and so it's. I don't know if the previous secretary applied a certain percentage based on quarters. Do you know if that was the case with this the first quarter report, or is it strictly 25% of total?
What they are doing is that they have their own, besides the projection that is projected in the budget, I think they have their own forecast on their reporting. So based on that forecast, because they have that historical data and when the collection will increase during the first quarter, when it will decrease, and based on their own internal forecast, that's how they project and compare with the actual.
Do you know what's the first quarter projection percentage of the overall budget?
I haven't seen their forecast for the first quarter.
No, but just on what they reported from first quarter, the revenue projection from first quarter. Okay. What percentage of that is from the whole budget? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just a percentage, and then we'll just get that later. Thank you. Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I just also I would like to, I support your recommendation of imposing the tax on not just the container, right, but also across the board that had for beverages that have sugar, because if the intent and the premise of this bill is to provide some funding assistance to the healthcare CHCC, then I think it should be across the board. Also, Dave, would you happen to know if when finance does their projection, so we have our projections, we have the actuals, the actual revenues that were generated, and then we have actual collections. Does that also include the remaining balance? So let's say they generated 20 million for first quarter, but we all know that not 100% of the 20 million will be collected. So let's say their collections fall short and it only shows 17 million. Is that capturing the 3 million that's on the books yet to be collected? Because when we look at the reports that is submitted to us by finance, right, we show projection versus actual, right? So and then from what I understand with a conversation that I have from a representative of revenue and tax, their collection is their projection, is what I'm told. But of course, I disagree with that. I know that we have what we project, what we think we're going to generate. Our actual revenues that we generate is what was filed through revenue and tax, and then we also have to understand that what was generated doesn't necessarily mean what was collected. That's why they have the aging report, right, that shows the outstanding balances of BGRs that have yet to be collected.
When there's a collection, that's actual cash.
Right.
For me, right?
Right.
When you're talking about collection that are accrued,
yes,
those are not collected yet.
Right.
So, but it's part of the revenue. But in governmental accounting, we're not using accrue basis. We're using modified accrue basis.
Okay.
We're pretty much like a cash basis. So when they say collection, we're saying about actual cash that came in.
Sure. Yes.
So, for example, for the first quarter of FY 2024, for example, I would assume, right, based on the revenue that was adopted by this body when we passed the FY 2024 budget, I would assume that the projection for that quarter would have been, you take the total revenue that we approve
Mm-hmm.
to be the revenue generated for FY 2024 and divide it by 4.
Right.
So that would have been the projection for the first quarter. But in my understanding with the Secretary of Finance report, there is also a forecast. They have their own forecast on the revenue because it's seasonal when they receive the money during a monthly period or a quarter period. Some months they will receive more cash. Some months they don't receive more cash. So they have their own quarterly forecast projection, aside from what is being adopted by this body as the revenue estimate to be collected for the whole year.
So is their internal forecast greater than what is actually
I
approved
think,
as a
the
projection?
internal forecast would have add up to the same level that we would have approved,
Okay.
but it would not be the same level on a quarterly basis.
And that's
they have
fine
their
because they
own
have the
historical
data,
data.
right? They
Yeah.
have the data to support their internal forecast.
Right.
But even with that, we are seeing the reports are telling us that they are way off.
Yeah. So in my case, if I were to accept what is the true deficit for a quarter, or for that matter for the entire fiscal year, I will use the one that was approved by this body into law, the revenue estimate.
I would assume that that's what they are using and not
No,
using something different.
I think they're using their own internal forecast, but when you add out their quarterly forecast, it would add up to
It
what
still
was,
adds up to what was in the budget, in the
because
approved
they have
budget.
their own historical record in collection. Some months they will collect less, some months they will have collected more.
Right.
So that's why they have their own.
Okay, and that's
Forecast.
understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that if we were to give to determine the true picture of the deficit for the quarter or for the entire fiscal year, I will use what was enacted as the revenue estimate for the fiscal year, and that will show us the true deficit if it was a deficit for FY 2024.
Right.
So that's my
Okay.
justification there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dave, for that explanation. I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So based on discussion, we will table 2378 HS1. Any objections? No objections. We will address this at a later time. Next up is if there are no objections, I want to move over to item 4H. House Bill 2380 to establish a fund from opioid settlement monies and a council to oversee funding for substance abuse abatement programs. Any discussion from the members? Recognize Senator King Neighbor.
I don't have, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any issues with this House bill. I appreciate its intent, and if there are no objections from the members, I would like to move for its adoption.
I have no objections to this bill. I support the intent.
All right.
Second, I guess, if
All right,
that
a
was
motion was made and seconded. Discussion on that motion.
Ready?
Can I recognize the LA to take roll?
Senator Selena Arbogata, Senator Carl King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Karina Elmagofta.
Yes.
Senator Dennis C. Mendiola. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 2 members are absent.
Thank you, Jolyn. With 3 members voting yes, House Bill 2380 is hereby adopted in its current form. Sorry, members. The reason I move forward is so that we can address the bills that the committee intends to adopt today. Discussion on any further discussion on House Bill 2374 HD1? Construction tax. Table? What?
If I may.
Recognize Senator King Nivers.
Thank you, Chairman. To be just completely open and honest with the members of this committee, I have my own hesitations about this bill. And if the members would like to deliberate further on the matter, then I ask that we table it for another day.
Thank you, Senator King Nivers. Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I wholeheartedly support this bill, but I would like to recommend that perhaps maybe we could increase the 250 threshold to something a little bit higher than that, maybe 350, just because as when we were in Rhoda and we were talking to concerned citizens there, the cost of construction there is a lot higher than what it is here on the island of Saipan. So I do support the bill, but not at the $200,000 threshold. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just to add on to your comment, I think that we have to kind of assess the cost of construction and compare it between the three districts based on the cost to ship materials, and then also what the impact would be on federal projects and what would be available after this 3% is added on to the project cost, and how much would be available to address projects on the two districts. And so I think some of the actions that we've been looking at is how do we address the cost of construction on the two islands. And so at the recommendation of Senator King Nivers, we will table this until such time we can find a common ground in terms of the costs between the three islands, and how do we equally distribute this increase to what the cost would be to construct in the other districts. Any objections to table this bill? If there are no objections, we now move on to discussion on House Bill 2391 to amend Section 711 of the CNMI Public Law 2309 to allow for the Department of Public Lands to utilize $1 million allotted under Civil Case number 16-004 to enhance their respective services. Discussion on the bill. I do want to read the comment from the Attorney General. I know there are some concerns were brought up in regards to remitting the entire amount to MPOT. DPL came up with an argument that these are not revenues generated from land leases. But something for the members to consider based on the comments by the Attorney General. It's and I'll just read the last paragraph here. The facts suggest that the funds received in the settlement agreement related to the potential punitive damages for the alleged anti-competitive actions, because it appears that there was not a loss of revenue from the breach of contract claims. The breach of contract claims were likely remedied through nullification of the contracts. SEL, which is one of the parties, was not required to compensate DPL monetarily. Both KPS and IPI were required to tender identical sums to DPL, and the lawsuit was settled before the deadline for submission of proposals for the RFP. Because these facts suggest that the settlement funds were received to compensate for potential punitive damages for the alleged anti-competitive actions, I agree with DPL that the funds should not be remitted to DPL and is subject to appropriation by the legislature. DPL submitted a budget proposal for the 1 million. They are proposing to spend to allocate 365,000 to their compliance division, and this is to address or to fund a vessel for the Managawa Rangers. They're requesting 35,000 for a vehicle, 200,000 for the land use plan development, and I know that's one of the bills that we have in committee. The vice chair's bill is to have DPL come up with the land use plan. 100,000 for surveying and road antennae, and the remaining funds will be transferred to MPOT at the end of the fiscal year. Any other discussion from the members? I recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just some clarifying questions. So I know that DPL submitted their proposed utilization of the funds, and the first being the $365,000 for a robust vessel for the Managaha Rangers. Is that something that they could work with Office of Management or Grants Management to see if they could get a grant for that vessel instead of using the $1 million to fund that? Do we know if they've
No, I don't know. I mean, they could. I just don't. They haven't proposed any grant
okay.
applications.
I'm just trying to see if we can exhaust other resources before we tap into, this money. So if they haven't reached out to grants office, I would like to recommend that they do so before requesting for this funds from the 1 million. Also, the second item on there for $35,000 for a new vehicle. I mean, what kind of vehicle are we talking about, and does it have to be a new vehicle? That's just something to consider. I don't know what their inventory is, as far as their fleet, but and I don't want to speculate or assume. So I guess my only concern here is whether or not this is, badly needed right now, and does it have to be a new vehicle? And those are the two concerns that I have on the proposed utilization of this fund. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice. I recognize Senator King Neighbor.
Thank you, Chair. I guess if I can make a recommendation to the committee, if we can take opportunity to bring in the Secretary of DPL. I do have some questions as well pertaining to. I'll wait till the chairman is waiting.
My apologies, Senator King Neighbors. Can you restate your question?
No problem. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to know if there are no objections from the members and the chair, if we could take the opportunity to reach out to DPL and maybe have an informal or formal meeting to discuss some of these requests. I just want clarification because we do know that the land use plan is something that is mandated by them to provide every, I think, 4 or 5 years. We do have some changes in regards to some of the proposals, especially in the second senatorial, with regards to Adgudan. I know that there was a surveying request submitted. We're finalizing some documentation right now with DOD in hopes to finalize the transfer of that property to be co-used for the second senatorial for a permanent landfill, RCRA compliant landfill. So if I can ask that we take an opportunity to kind of flesh this out a little bit more and get some better guidance as to what's going to happen with this.
Okay. Well, we can address your concern in the vice chair's bill that would require them to come up with the comprehensive land use plan by a certain date. That one, the request for comments was sent yesterday. When we do schedule a committee meeting to address that bill, then we'll invite them in to address that concerns. But in terms of the budget portion of this request, and the concerns brought up by Senator McLaughlin, we can table this for Monday's committee meeting. With this short amount of time, we'll try to request that the secretary or her designee can be available to the committee to answer any questions from the committee members. Additionally, we may be acting on a council is still verifying whether this would be considered revenues in terms of having to amend also the concurrent resolution, because we're in essence increasing the ceiling, right? The overall ceiling. So we'll address that on Monday. And so if there are no objections of the members, we'll table this until Monday. The next item on the agenda is House Bill 2316 HS1. And then I just want to tie that in with Senate Bill 2349. Both bill proposes to make changes to commerce. So I guess we can briefly discuss the portion that we will want to keep from House Bill if the members would agree to the increase in fees, and then act on the increase or the change to the annual corporate report separately through Senate Bill 2349. I note that the vice chair we had an informal meeting with SEC and Commerce to go over the concerns. And so in regards to House Bill 2316, I would propose we take out C and D and address it in finer detail in Senate Bill 2349. And then as far as maintaining A through B, any concerns? Council, is there, or Jolyn, is this section 18? Just 18? Is it missing a? Notwithstanding section 18, where LLC whose members have a combined annual net income greater than or equal to 100,000.
Isn't that already included in the articles of incorporation? So we're gonna add. Section A is to charge a filing fee for articles of organization, operating agreements, and registered agent for $30. But isn't that already part of the articles of incorporation when you create and form the corporation at $150?
In addition to 150, it's $30 if your
Right,
income is
so-
greater than
Oh,
100,000.
okay, so we're going by. I guess I'm just trying to understand why the additional $30. So is it because there's an increase in responsibilities for, when you have $100,000 income tax return versus a $50,000 tax return or $500,000 tax return? What is the rationale behind the additional $30? I mean, we're trying to encourage businesses to continue to operate in the CNMI, and if we, I mean, I know $30 is very immaterial, but to some, just $30 that could go someplace. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what is the rationale behind the additional $30 and the threshold of 100,000.
Trying to understand why it would say reduce startup costs.
But you're adding, yeah.
Is that correct in that they're adding $30 on top of the 150?
Well, it's underlined, right? So that means it's an amendment to add, to insert this additional section or this.
Yeah. I want to know what is the definition of startup costs?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, because when we're talking
Okay.
about startup costs, right? You would have to identify your costs for doing business. What are those initial costs to establish a business? So we want to know what are those.
Is this reducing it from 50 to 30?
I don't see it on there that says you're reducing from 50 to 30. I the way I read this to understand is that you're in.
Sorry, notwithstanding 18 and under section 18, it says $50. Any other document required or permitted
Oh.
to be filed, such as bylaws, affidavit, minutes, resolutions, all the other documents. So notwithstanding,
So the intent is to reduce the cost of the startup cost of business, but you want to charge them, I mean, if that's the case, then just remove the fee for the articles of organization and keep the fee on articles of incorporation, because when you do your articles of incorporation, technically you attach all the all these other documents that are mentioned in section A to your articles of incorporation. So we're charging them separately to form the organization, and then once the our organization, their operating agreement and their registered agent, we're going to charge them for forming the corporation. I don't see how we're helping the businesses reduce the cost. And it's just to reduce startup costs. Is that for new businesses or existing businesses? Because the startup costs are normally associated with new businesses.
yeah, I think this will need further clarification and work on. And so there's no objection to the members. We'll table for Monday 2316 and Senate Bill 2349
Okay.
with the understanding that portions of 16 will be dealt with under Senate Bill 2349.
No objection.
If there are no
No
objections,
objection.
then it will be tabled for Monday. Just one last item on the agenda, which is the Senate Resolution 2310, requesting the Honorable Governor Arnold I. Palacios to reserve Commonwealth funds to provide a retiree bonus or COLA to be distributed equally to all settlement class members and CNMI fund members receiving annuity. Discussion? Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I do appreciate the intent of the bill to help our retirees, right? Yes, and I think it's commendable, and I'm sure the retirees would greatly appreciate this additional income. I guess. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I do support the intent of the resolution. However, just given the conversation that we had earlier about the potential deficit that we may be in at the end of this fiscal year, perhaps maybe now is not the right time to consider putting on additional burden on the government to find the funding to provide to our retirees. I mean, again, I just want to reiterate that the intent of the resolution is admirable, and I believe the retirees deserve and would appreciate this additional income. But at this point in time, I think we need to revisit our financial condition and determine whether or not this is something that's feasible at this time or something to be considered in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I recognize Senator King Evers.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the sentiments of this resolution. I don't take any issue with adopting the resolution. I do understand we are in a particular fiscal situation, but we have been in this fiscal situation similarly before, looking down, and we have resolved that in the event funds are made available or identified, that we ask the governor to consider giving the retirees a bonus or a COLA. But if the members are not amenable to that, I yield to the members.
Thank you, Senator King Evers. I think the one of the main concerns, first off, is that even if the governor reserves, it'll be up to the legislature to appropriate future funds realized through whatever revenue sources that we can use to pay the COLA. Additionally, there is legislation that would revert the casino license fee to pay settlement class members. That could be another option to consider, and we can address it through that legislation. But I think we can address this resolution at a time when we address the casino license fee legislation. That way, if the members would like to proceed with the casino license fee legislation, then we can marry the two resolutions to allow for any reservation of excess casino license fee monies to be used as COLA. Recognize Senator King Evers.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to remind the members that we have 604 money that we have not yet been identified per the Secretary of Finance that was mandated to have been made pre-approved to draw down. There was a request by the administration to have those monies transferred over from 604 to either one of the other tranches, 602 or 603. Also, there are reimbursements. So there are many different methodologies that we could go about furnishing, in my opinion, this for retiree bonuses. But I'll yield to the members.
Thank you. Vice Chair, recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And just for clarification, this is not a one-time bonus or COLA, right? If this is adopted, it would be a recurring annual. No, it's just a one-time. I mean, I have no objection to the resolution. If we could find the funding source for it and, get finance to concur or, give us confirmation and the confidence to be able to provide the retires with this bonus, then I support it 100%. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Further discussions? If not, we will, if there are no objections to tabling this and putting it together with the casino license bill, we can address that in the next committee meeting whenever the casino license fee bill will be addressed by the committee. All right, if there are no objections, then that takes care of all bills. As stated earlier, we are moving some of the bills to our next committee meeting, which will be on Monday, to address the funding for the Cannabis Commission. So members, under miscellaneous, I just want to announce that Monday at 1 p.m. we will be addressing the budget for Cannabis Commission. Any other announcements?
No.
Recognize.
Thank you, Chair. I just also want to make the announcement that the REDP and Gaming Committee will be having a formal meeting with the casino commissioners next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I believe. If not 10 o'clock, then 9 o'clock. But I invite all the Senate members to participate, and it'll be just for the Casino Commission to provide us with some status updates as to their current affairs and what's really going on with the revocation hearing, why it's being, just to give them the opportunity to provide some status updates to our people and help us understand where they stand and where they're going. So I invite the public and the Senate members to attend if their schedule permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other announcements? If not, can I get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the chair.
Sorry,
All right,
second.
motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 1:35 p.m.